A big bang strategy that we're going to focus on right now is called peer-mediated strategies. And this is teaching children how to interact with each other appropriately. A lot of times I see people teaching peer-mediated social skills at all the wrong times. So let's start out with, when do we teach skills? Sometimes in a classroom, we have Johnny going over to the block area. He sees Sally playing with some blocks. They're the blocks he really likes. So he walks over to Sally and he wiggles his fingers into her hair and gives her hair a nice hard tug. When he pulls her hair, she drops the blocks and she starts screaming and crying. And that is typically when our attention is drawn to that situation. At that moment, a teacher may come over. She may say, Johnny, we don't do that. You do not pull hair. We look at our friends, we tap them on the shoulder, we say their name, and we ask for a turn. When I am talking about directly teaching social skills, directly teaching peer-mediated strategies, I am never referring to that time. There is no learning that occurs right after a challenging behavior occurs. What happens is we react. We react to a challenging behavior, and how we react to that challenging behavior in large measure determines whether it will continue, whether it'll escalate, or whether it'll go away. If we give Johnny a lot of attention at that moment, it is very likely, if he was seeking attention, we have just strengthened the challenging behavior. We have not taught a social skill. To teach a social skill, we need to teach a social skill when there is no challenging behavior happening. We need to teach a social skill to our entire classroom. We do this most often in a large group setting. So think about teaching social skills as part of your large group. Now, not only do we want it in our large group time, we also want to teach that social skill when we're going to have an opportunity to practice. So my recommendation is you look at your circle time, you choose when to teach your social skill, and maybe right after you teach your social skill, you dismiss and go to centers, to some free play activity where children will be able to practice their social skill. When we are teaching social skills, there are 4 steps we need to consider. The first one is this direct teaching. When we are directly teaching a social skill, we want to be telling children, here's what you need to do. Let's say, for example, we're going to teach getting your friend's attention. To teach getting your friend's attention, I would explain, here's what it looks like. You look at your friend, you tap them on the shoulder, and you say their name. We want to make sure children know exactly what's expected and how to do the skill. We then might practice. I might call up my co-teacher and say, Jennifer, come on up and let's practice. And then I'll say, children, watch what we're doing, and I'll narrate. Okay, I'm going to look at Jennifer, I'm going to tap her on the shoulder, and I'm going to say her name. Now, Jennifer might answer, she might not. If she doesn't answer, we might prompt and say, Jennifer, when I do that, say, hi, Kelly, or yes, Kelly, so we can prompt that response. That's how we directly teach the social skill. Now, we may say, okay, who thinks they can do this skill? Johnny raises his hand. We say, Johnny, come on up. Let's see if you can do the skill. And then we practice with that child. Depending on the age of our children, we might have them turn to their friend and practice this skill with their friend. So we want to directly teach that social skill. One thing that's often really fun to do after we've taught that social skill, we've demonstrated, we've practiced with each other, then I might want to demonstrate the wrong way. So I might say to the children in my class, okay, I think I've got it. I'm going to try it again. Tell me if I do it correctly. And then I'm going to look at my teacher, Jennifer, and I'm going to say, Jennifer! And then I'll look at my class and say, did I do it right? The typical response is laughter. And then the children are so happy to correct me. And they say, no, Miss Kelly, that's not how you do it. You need to look at her, tap her on the shoulder, and say her name. So not only does that elicit engagement, with the children, so they're actively participating. It also lets me know that they know the skill because they can describe it to me. The second step is opportunities to practice. Once you have learned that skill, you've seen it demonstrated, now you need opportunities to practice. And I connect this to my own learning. If you were to show me some new skills on my computer, or literally any technology for that matter, and you showed it to me and I never got to practice it, I would not learn that skill. If you're showing me something on the computer or any technology, you're going to have to give me the opportunity to practice, preferably with you watching, so you can say, no, do it this way, that was good, now add on this piece. We're doing the same for the children that we work with in teaching social skills. We want to teach them, here's what the skill looks like, and then we want to give them that immediate opportunity to practice so that we can be watching, facilitating, and helping them to do it correctly and to have success. So opportunities. When we go to centers, there are plenty of naturally occurring opportunities for children to practice getting their friends' attention. And that's good. We want to capitalize on those naturally occurring opportunities. We also want to create planned opportunities. We want there to be times where you go to a center, you're going to have to get your friends' attention. So what do I mean by that? I might put some materials out in my art center. Let's say I can have 4 children. I have a large center. I can have 4 children in the art center. I will put out an activity, perhaps one that is very exciting, maybe novel or new for them to explore. And one of the things that they're going to need to do is glue. They're going to have to glue papers onto another paper. For this particular center, I might only put out 2 glue sticks, knowing that 4 children can play there. But if I set it up where there's not going to be enough, they're going to have to ask their friend to pass them a glue stick. So we want to set up activities on purpose that are going to elicit this social skill. They're going to call for children to have to get their friends' attention. Now, when we are setting this up, again, I want us to be intentional and be thinking about all children. If we know certain children might need some assistance using this skill, we can make sure to have the adults in that space, in proximity, and be there to help facilitate those interactions. Let's say we have a child in our classroom that has autism, and maybe this child isn't acknowledging peers at all. Doesn't acknowledge, doesn't even know he has peers. To ask that child to look at their friend, tap them on the shoulder, and say their name is way far away from where they're at right now. When we teach social skills, the idea of teaching to the entire class is so that we're teaching that social skill to the entire community. So I might say to Sally, Sally, we're going to be working on getting our friend's attention. And she's going to say, well, Miss Kelly, when I ask Jonathan and I tap him on the shoulder and I say his name, he doesn't even answer me. So I can say, hey, what do we do if we tap our friend on the shoulder and they don't answer? Maybe we can try again. And I'm going to be right there in that area. So I'll say, Sally, let's try that again. And Sally can look at her friend, Jonathan. She can tap him on the shoulder and say his name. And then what I'm going to do there, my role as the adult, is going to help facilitate Jonathan to respond, whatever that looks like. If he just looks her way, if he says yes, whatever, wherever he is at, I want to be there to help facilitate that interaction. When we teach social skills, we're not teaching social skills to remediate Jonathan's behavior. We're teaching social skills so that that whole community knows how to interact with each other. Jonathan may interact a little bit differently. Sally may not like that right away. Remember, Sally's not so keen on other people's ideas and people doing things differently. So what we teach when we teach these social skills is we teach that entire community that sometimes people interact differently. And sometimes we need to do a little bit different to get that interaction. But it's worth it because everybody in our community belongs. They're all a member of our community. The third thing we want to do is we want to promote and prompt social interactions. So if I'm there and I'm playing blocks and Sally and Johnny are there and we're facilitating and playing together, and Johnny looks at me and says, "Miss Kelly, will you give me that red block?" I can do things like I can say, "Johnny, that is very good asking. Here's what you can do. You can look at Sally, tap her on the shoulder, say her name, and ask her to give you the block. That block is right by her foot." So I'm prompting and facilitating children to use their social skills with each other. It would have been very easy for me to just hand Jonathan the block, but that's not the goal. The goal is that they interact with each other. So we want to make sure we're prompting those peer-to-peer interactions. The fourth component and the final piece of teaching social skills is the reinforcement system. We're asking children to use this new skill. We need to think about how are we going to acknowledge children for using their new skill, and how are we going to reinforce that new skill as the way, right? This is how we do things in our classroom, in our community. So we need to be thinking of the reinforcement system. To be honest, this is the component that people miss out on the most. They're good at teaching, they're good with planning and prompting. That reinforcement piece, if you're going to drop any piece, it's typically that one. I would encourage you, don't drop that piece. Reinforcement can look like, okay, today when we go to centers, we're going to be looking for children using their new skill, tapping their friend on the shoulder, saying their name, getting their attention using this skill. If we catch you getting your friend's attention, you might get a superstar necklace. And then we can go ahead and recognize and acknowledge children throughout our center time that are using their new skill. When we're done with center time, if we come back to a large group time, I encourage you to add even one more piece on that. That piece is that public recognition piece. So I come around to my circle, we're done with our free play time, I look around for friends who are wearing a superstar. So I would say, "Sally, I see you're wearing a superstar. Come on up front. Tell us how you earned your superstar." Now, when Sally comes up front, she's not going to face me. I'm going to turn her around so she's facing all of her peers. She's facing her community, and she's going to share how she earned her superstar. She may say, "Today when I was in blocks, I shared. And I looked at Johnny and I tapped him on the shoulder and I said his name and I said, 'Here's a block.'" And then we're going to prompt the class and say, "Oh, let's give Sally a round of applause. Sally, you are being a super friend." And then Sally goes and sits back down, and we could call every child up that earned a superstar that day. When we're encouraging these new behaviors, when we're teaching these social skills, we want to make sure that we're giving that public acknowledgement so that everybody in our community knows that this is how we do things here. We appreciate each other, we acknowledge each other.